Welcome, everybody, to the Wrestling with Sarcasm podcast. This is episode 2. Thank you for giving it a download. We have officially made it one episode longer than I thought I was going to make it, so that is a very exciting thing for me. My name is That Damn Dave Shaw. That is a nickname I gave myself now that I'm thinking about it, so that's a little embarrassing, but whatever, it's too late. My name is That Damn Dave Shaw. It's good to have you guys this week. As always, you can check out our website, wrestlingwithsarcasm.com, for subscribe links for each week's episode and for any other information relative to the podcast, so give that a visit. You can also find us on Twitter at SarcasmPod. That Twitter handle is SarcasmPod because all of the good wrestling Twitter handles were taken, and so that's what I'm left with. But go ahead and give us a follow. We'd be glad to follow you back. I got a lot of great feedback from the folks that listened to the episode last week. That feedback has also led me to institute a brand new segment. It's only episode 2, so every segment is brand new, but a brand new segment on the show this week, and that is, what did Dave fuck up last week? By overwhelming response, it turns out that I fucked up the use of the word myopic, not because I don't know what it means, although perhaps that might have been a problem, but also I used it, I think, about 15 separate times during the show last week. A, I'm going to try and not do that. B, the fact that I'm trying not to do that means I will probably use it 15 times this week, so just bear with me. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I want to say one very important thing. God bless you. The format of the show is very simple. The time limit maximum is 30 minutes because everything in professional wrestling takes too long, and this is not going to be one of those things. And we cover 2 topics. Try to make those topics a little bit outside of the beaten path. We do not do recaps. We will never do recaps. I hate recaps. Recaps. Topic number 1 this week is what it means to be a heel. Tommaso Ciampa won the NXT Championship this past week. He is one of the purest, most evil, most hated, most fuck that guy heels in recent memory. It turns out the WWE roster is littered with people that they would like to call heels but aren't actually heels, and we're going to dig into exactly what that does to the product. Topic 2 this week is going to be the word bitch, which is a word that is close to my heart as somebody that curses way too often, not just on this podcast, but in my personal and professional lives. And I'm really going to try pretty hard not to turn this podcast into another shit on Roman Reigns bonfire, but maybe we'll do that just a little bit in segment 2. Topic 1 today is heels. That's grammatically not right, but we're just going to go with it. Heels. And heel is a pro wrestling carny way to just say bad guy. I think this topic is especially relevant right now because Tommaso Ciampa is now your NXT champion. He beat Aleister Black in a pretty phenomenal match, but I don't know that it was the match with Black that really elevated him into the status that he has. It was instead, obviously, his feud with Johnny Gargano over the past few matches, over the past few cards. That feud mixed intensity and match work, certainly, and storytelling in the ring, but I think it was really set apart by the ability for NXT and for these performers to tell a story where there was a very clear bad guy who we hated, but we hated for storyline reasons. We hated for character reasons. And that sounds like something kind of stupid or basic. That is professional wrestling 101. There is a bad guy that we have to boo in order to be really excited that Hulk Hogan, slayed the monster. But if you look up and down the roster for WWE on both SmackDown and Raw, you will find a list of people that the WWE would classify as a heel, but they're heels for other reasons. So, for example, we hate Jinder. Jinder Mahal is a pretty decent heel. He does get booed, which is a feat, sadly, in today's WWE for a heel to actually get booed, but he does get booed. And the reason that he is booed can probably come down to one of 3 things. One of them is quite depressing, and that is your regular old racism. And the WWE has played into that with some of the promos and some of the match work that they've given Jinder over the past 2 years to perform, saying a number of things in the ring that if I went back and found we would all cringe at, specifically to Shinsuke Nakamura. That is not a good reason to get booed, and that's not something that we should go back to. And the people that say, well, xenophobia and the angry, like, Russian performer, R.I.P. Nikolai, the angry Russian performer, it's a tradition in wrestling, and so, we're different. We're wrestling. It's okay. It's not okay. There's a number of things that used to be okay that are no longer okay. Slavery used to be a thing that we did. Now we don't. That's probably for the best. And not bringing back angry foreigner heels to play on the racist and xenophobic fears of America is probably not something that we need to bring back into the modern day. So let's throw that one to the side. There are perhaps, I've never met one of these people, I've not seen too many of these people on Twitter, but there are perhaps people who don't like Jinder because of storyline reasons. They don't like him because he's arrogant. They don't like him because he cheats to win. They don't like him because he has to bring people down to ringside in order to facilitate said cheating. That's fine. There are not that many people that feel that way. Really, his heel heat, really the reason that people don't like Jinder is because he won and we didn't think that he deserved it. It was an external factor. It was a meta factor. When he was put in the match with Randy Orton, we all assumed that he had no possibility to win. We assumed that it was just another way to get through another month of pay-per-views and to give Randy a win over somebody that we didn't really care about. And so when he won, certainly there was a shock factor. And certainly there was some interest in the fact that there was at least a surprising result on what have become pretty predictable shows of late. But really at the core of that, it was, really? Jinder's a champion? When there are a million people that the internet community care about, Cesaro and people like that, who are not champion, for them to force Jinder upon us, somebody that we didn't think deserved that spot at expense of some of the people that we do respect and care about, that is where a lot of his heel heat has come from. And that's fine. That is a thing that gets him booed, and he does certainly get booed, but it's not the kind of heat that stirs up emotion or anger in the same way that a good storyline heel can stir up. I am now very excited to introduce, as part of my argument, another nerdy thing that I appreciate, and that is Marvel superheroes. Namely, this guy.
In time, you will know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail all the same.
Oh man, that's Thanos. What a fucking dick that guy is. This is a no spoiler podcast. If you have not seen Infinity War, you probably should go do that. I will say that the ending leads you to a place that allows you to appreciate even more how much you fucking hate that guy. That quote, that character, that movie, portray a villain that is easy to hate. Now, he is a complex villain. He has some layers to him. He believes in what he's doing. He might even have an argument for what he's doing. But at the core of it, it's a moral decision that most of us would disagree with. But the fact that he is so clear in his intention and so clear in his portrayal as a bad guy puts all of the good guys that we care about, all the superheroes that we care about, in a brand new place that makes us really, really root for them, not just because we liked Captain America as a child, but because we believe in the cause of defeating Thanos. Fuck that guy, right? Now let me play a quote. There were many to choose from. Let me play a quote from Ciampa where he's talking about Johnny. And notice the music in the background, the tone of his voice. There are some Thanos-like qualities that I think really help his character.
Take over New Orleans. I take your spirit, your soul, your heart, Johnny Wrestling, and everything it stands for ends.
I take your spirit. I take your fucking heart. Fuck you. I messed around with your wife. Like, it was all terrible, right? It was a very clear story of Ciampa being a dick. I was at TakeOver New Orleans. We are sitting there. You guys have seen the match, but during one part of the match, Tommaso actually rips up part of the padding on the outside, exposing the concrete underneath. Now, Tommaso, who thinks that he just fucking knows everything, he just Johnny Smart guy, he intends to injure our hero, Cleveland's own, Johnny Gargano, right? And by happenstance and by professional wrestling, just step-by-step kind of stuff, it turns out that he is the person who is teased with getting a powerbomb off of the apron onto that cement. And the cheering in the crowd, just the fervor in the crowd of being so excited that that motherfucker was going to have his spine hit concrete was palpable in the crowd. And after the spot where he took that bump, and after a number of bumps during the match, the crowd chanted, "You deserve it, you deserve it." He came out to chants of "fuck you, Ciampa, fuck you, Ciampa, fuck you, Ciampa." Amazing shit. And that is the kind of vitriol and anger and hatred that is not going to be there when you hate somebody just because you kind of don't think that in their workplace they deserve the spot that they have. And if you look up and down the WWE roster, there are a number of people that are like that. Think about what Eva Marie was. Now, Eva Marie, R.I.P., she's not dead, but she's gone. She was mega heel, but she was mega heel because she didn't deserve her spot. And that will take you a certain distance, certainly. She was able to carve out at least some kind of an existence. She got on Total Divas for like 3 years. Good for her. But as palpable as that heat was, it wasn't going to sustain her as a heel over a long period of time. Look at Baron Corbin. He is a guy that I should stop generalizing. He is a guy that I don't feel like deserves his spot because he's just so fucking boring. He has one good move, which is an impressive move, and he has certainly gotten better over time, but he's a performer that I don't really enjoy seeing. And so the heat that he gets from me, at least, and I think there are other people that are like this, is I'm not interested in this. I don't need this. Just go somewhere else. Some people call that X-Pac heat, which I would kind of agree with because kind of over that guy too. But that's the kind of heat that is certainly strong. It's not the kind of hatred that sets up the person on the other side to be the conquering hero. And after that, it doesn't really get a lot better. There are people that are heels that are stated as such that get absolutely no reaction. Authors of Pain, sadly, are in that bucket, at least for the time being. Mojo Rawley. I understand that you're friends with Gronk. I don't need that to be part of my life. I don't need Gronk to just like Gronk up everything. I don't need that to be a thing. So I appreciate that you have friends, buddy. But the shtick is not enough for me. Now, there are people that have been on Reddit and have been on Twitter and said that it's starting to gain some traction, and that's fine. But he still doesn't have like a hatred reaction for some kind of storyline reason. Getting the conga line of No Way Jose to stop dancing is not enough. Think about Tommaso. Getting somebody to stop dancing is not a Tommaso-level activity. It is not a Tommaso-level injustice that needs to be rectified. And then we get to the thing that I just fucking hate. I hate the most. And that is the principle of a cowardly heel. And I understand that heels cheating to stay in power has been a thing in wrestling for forever, since longer than I've been alive. And the WWE had a very successful run with JBL doing that exact same thing. They made apparently enough money to want him to still be champion, but they did it because all he did was cheat to win. He was a textbook cowardly heel. And it feels like they have done nothing but try to recapture that feeling of him as champion with every single person that has come after him, including a Seth Rollins run that was dismal. And when I say it was dismal, it's no discounting Seth Rollins. It's simply to say, look at what his reaction is now after his knee surgery, where he has been a face, where he has been a good guy since he came back, and his reactions are off the charts. Now, part of that is because he has a pretty badass fucking theme song that has Burn It Down in the middle of it, and it's very fun to yell. Certainly that is part of it. But just the dichotomy of his heel run and his babyface run show that the cowardly heel was the thing that was holding him back. It was not him as a performer. It was not him on the microphone. It was the way that he was portrayed, and it was done in such a way where you just didn't believe that he could beat anybody for a long period of time. His current run, where people are just losing their shit for him, he has beaten 1 million people, and he's put in these crazy performances, and he's just given it 135%. That's the kind of stuff that gets over with the crowd, not the cowardly heel stuff. It is my least favorite thing. And one of my favorite wrestlers on the planet Earth is Kevin Owens. This is the kind of shit that they make him say on Raw.
Oh, hey! Keep him away from me. Keep him away from me. You have to know you can't put me in the ring with him tonight.
Relax, Kevin. I'm not going to put you in the ring with him tonight.
Now, I get that Braun is Braun and needs to be treated like Braun, and people need to be scared of him to play up the fact that he is a gigantic monster. I understand that. But also, you have a former Universal Champion hiding behind a note from the doctor's office, or Stephanie McMahon's office in this case. To do so in such a cowardly way, how am I supposed to boo that? I am way more likely to not respect that, and not respecting something is not the kind of stuff that you boo your fucking face off at. It's not the kind of thing where when somebody gets powerbombed onto concrete, you say, you deserved it. Even when he got thrown off the top of the cage, nobody chanted he deserved it. If anything, he was a kind of a sympathetic character, that he was locked in there with some gigantic man and was then pushed off the roof of a building, off of a structure, and then was hospitalized. Now, in WWE logic, they would say, oh, what a bad guy. He's a coward. Braun got him. That's fine. In real life, he's the fucking victim in this situation. And the fact that there are two different possible explanations for those actions shows that there is no purity to the evil that is the WWE heel. I think what has done this to the WWE, has done this to the collective brain trust there, loose term, is Steve Austin. And Steve Austin, one of the great success stories of all time, obviously. But the fact that he became a good guy through being a bad guy and kind of mixing those lines and did it to such phenomenal effect, they have been trying to go back to that formula ever since. They have been trying to find tweeners, people that sit in the middle of good and evil, and can kind of fluctuate and can kind of like go with wherever the crowd takes them. Or can be that cool bad guy that people like to cheer, which is a very hard mix to nail and is very specific in many instances to the Stone Cold character, who is just a fucking badass because that's who he is in real life, amped up to, 55. That is a hard thing to recreate. And by keeping everybody in the middle where they're like a little bit bad and a little bit good, you're giving nobody the opportunity to really be one or the other. And in NXT, Ciampa was not sitting on any fucking middle, man. He turned on his tag team partner. He ruined his life. He beat the shit out of him with a crutch. He made his wife hit the ground. A million bad things happened. There were storyline, character-driven reasons for us to hate that guy. And there were so many of those reasons that the NXT TakeOver show in New Orleans largely became a show about that rivalry. People wanted to see Ciampa get his ass kicked. That is, by the way, the entire formula of professional wrestling. The whole point is to build up a story such so that you want to see somebody get their ass kicked, and you want to see their ass kicked by somebody that we love and care about, by Hulk Hogan, if it was 1986. And in our cases, that was Johnny Gargano, and it happened, and it was cathartic, and everybody fucking loved it. Meanwhile, back on the main roster, we are watching endless Finn versus Baron versus whoever matches. And it just dawned on me today, actually. We are headed for a SummerSlam Angle versus Baron match. Fuck that. I love Kurt Angle. I love me some Kurt Angle. And I love that he wrestles on a part-time basis. But I am over Constable Corbin. And that is not the kind of anger and vitriol that is going to sell tickets or make somebody's career in the way that Ciampa's career has been made. Now, part of that, he looks like a psychopath. He earned the nickname, the Sicilian Psychopath, for sure. His beard is tremendous. I admire his beard. I aspire to be his beard. Not him, totally, just his beard. I aspire to be his beard. That is an evil fucking beard. And it's the beard and the actions and everything else, but it all character-driven stuff that has made him the polarizing figure that he is, which is the point, which is the entire point of professional wrestling. One last parallel I will make about this topic is I am a Westworld fan. I have suffered now, I would call it suffering. We can debate that maybe offline, through seasons 1 and 2. Season 1 was great. There were twists in season 1 that I didn't see coming, and there were fun surprises, and it was all put together in a package that I could understand without overly complicating everything. Season 2, opposite of that situation. Season 2, hot fucking train wreck. That thing went off the rails 20 minutes into episode 1, and about episode 6, I was like, I got nothing. If I have to hit Reddit, or if I have to hit a podcast after every episode to understand what the H is going on, then that is, I think, a little complicated for its own good. And I think what happened, the producers of Westworld saw the Reddit conversations around season 1 and said, no, we're going to outsmart those motherfuckers. We're going to make it so hard to understand and so many twists and turns and so many timelines, and Bernard this, and then Dolores that, and then people look confused for no reason. You don't understand why, and all this kind of shit. They were trying to outsmart the audience, and by doing so, cheapened the story underneath it. And I think that's what WWE tries to do every single, I've said fuck too many times on this podcast, but fucking time. Every time. Every episode, they're trying to play some kind of middle, is he bad or is he good? Or depending on the crowd reaction, he might say one thing or he might say another thing. Or they're just always trying to outsmart themselves and outsmart us and try to keep everything surprising. Tell a simple story. I don't need 15 matches on a pay-per-view that I kind of don't understand why they're there, when I could have 5, the NXT model, 5 matches, all of which have stories, all of which have builds, all of which I have some kind of vested interest in the outcome. And the heelness, the heel nature in each one of those 5 matches is carried through to the matches themselves. It's not just, let's have a lot of promos where we talk about each other and then get in the ring and just have a normal match. People in the ring that are bad guys are doing bad guy shit. Tommaso Ciampa is doing bad guy stuff. The story continues to be told during the match itself, and that's what made it great. And that is a thing that the WWE main roster has to understand from NXT. How to book and portray a bad guy is not something that has to be so nuanced and so modern and so meta. It has to be this motherfucker.
In time, you will know what it's like to lose. To feel so desperately that you're right, yet to fail all the same.
Give me someone to hate. Give me a good reason. Let me watch my favorite person conquer them. That's it. Now, I will tell a personal story, an anecdote of being a small child. I was on the playground, and I was in a verbal disagreement with another gentleman in my class. I think probably that disagreement had something to do with kickball. I was a little neurotic, always. I was going to say as a child, but that has continued. And I had competing kickball franchises in my elementary school. I know it sounds ridiculous, but this is true. And I spent time working up kickball contracts. That is right, kickball contracts. I think I was in 4th grade. And I walked around to every good kickball player in my class, and I had them sign probably a piece of paper that I tore out of a notebook that had those little, like, tiny pieces of paper still stuck to it. I made them sign it and say, I'm on Dave's team, and I will refuse to play for Eugene's team. Names changed to protect the person. I just don't remember his name. I will not play on Eugene's team. I am Team Dave. And I'm going to get this spot in the lineup, and I'm going to be able to play this position, and under these terms, I will only play for Dave. Now, you wouldn't know it from the quality of this podcast, but I was very successful as a 4th grader. My kickball team was fucking awesome, and we demolished the other team, Eugene's team, every single day. Every single day at recess, it was 25-2 and 30-4, and it was like, fuck you. No, I was in 4th grade. I didn't curse quite so much. But there was a disagreement, as you might expect, when the other team was pretty sick of losing. And I had these ironclad contracts that I wrote up on my notebook paper, and there was no lawyer that was ever going to, whatever, fine. They were pretty annoyed that they were losing, and they were annoyed that the game was essentially rigged in my favor because I went out and signed all these people. Keep in mind, this is 4th graders playing kickball. This is all fake, but whatever. This was the nature of the disagreement. Eugene came up to me and he said, "What is your problem?" And I said, "Nothing is my problem, bitch." Now, in 4th grade, the word bitch, that's a loaded word. It's a word that we throw around a little bit too often right now. But back in 4th grade, man, it had an effect. Now, looking back on that as a 4th grader, there's not a lot of nuance to that argument. There's not a lot of thought and kind of expertise in crafting the discussion that I was going to have with Eugene. I basically just said a bunch of words and then the word bitch, and everybody went, ooh, you know. And then somebody told on me, and then I got in trouble and whatever. I'm sure my mom got a phone call that day. The reason that I tell this story is because the WWE is not unlike 4th grade for me. The way that promos are constructed, there are 9 times out of 10 nothing in these promos to give any kind of reaction to the crowd. It is just random rambling. It is talking about Bobby Lashley's sisters for some reason. There's a generic, I'm going to come get you kind of a message. There's not a lot to latch onto. And the WWE is in an endless search for crowd reaction, right? And instead of doing it through character building, as we talked about in segment 1, sometimes we try to just shock people into having some kind of a reaction so that I can play the YouTube clip later and say, oh, look at how awesome Roman Reigns is. He has the crowd in the palm of his hand, you know? And the way that we do that is by using the word bitch. Just this week on Raw, we are in chapter 97 of the Brock Lesnar-Roman Reigns feud that I'm supposed to care about. And as an example of how bad the storytelling has been, I do not care about it. In fact, I was there at WrestleMania when the crowd was so disinterested in what was happening, literally any other visual stimuli was a thing that we chanted for and looked at instead of the match. So knowing that, the WWE did not change anything about the story, did not give us something new to care about. Although I do think that Brock being backstage looking at the Woodsman magazine was a great thing, but whatever. Instead of all that stuff, during a promo, Roman Reigns is going to throw down the word that he's going to call him a bitch. And the crowd is going to go, ooh. There is nothing different about that argument than my argument in 4th grade. And if you are telling 4th grade stories, I am out. And that is what has happened to that audience. They have seen Dave's 4th grade kickball awesome team throwing down an argument that doesn't make any sense and really doesn't matter. And goddamn it, I was in 4th grade anyway, and so who cares? But I said the word bitch there, and I bet Eugene, you're sitting there somewhere today and you're thinking, oh yeah, that was me, and there's a tear in your eye. But that was 4th grade. And at least in theory, we're adults now. That's debatable, looking at the world as it is today. But the standard has to be higher than, oh yeah, well you're a bitch. Oh yeah, well you're a bitch. Oh yeah, well I'm going to say something about your mom or wife. Oh yeah, well your mom sucks. And this is the argument that we're in. This is not storytelling that is compelling to an audience big enough to warrant the stature that it's given. To an audience that is big enough to want to see these two people again fight at SummerSlam again. This is why we are exhausted of these people. And being exhausted, as we talked about in segment 1, is not the same as being super excited to see somebody get their ass kicked. And before I get out of here today, one bonus segment, one last little thought. On Monday Night Raw this week, Sasha Banks, Bayley, 2 of the Women's Evolution Charter members, they're blazing a trail. WWE totally cares about women. They were given a tag team name, officially, during the show. Their tag team name is the Boss and Hug Connection. Now, I'm a fan of nostalgia. I like The Rock. I like Mick Foley. I get that you're going for a rock and sock connection kind of a thing. You're giving them matching ring gear. Don't worry, they're buddies now. Really, we're just postponing the inevitable blood feud, but whatever. We're giving them a really awesome name. It's going to call back to everything. It is the Boss and Hug Connection. First of all, it sounds like Boss Hog, which is not a good thing. And 2, it is a terrible name. I like to think the same guy that came up with that is the same guy that came up with the word absolution. Didn't understand what it meant. Perhaps it was on a word-a-day calendar on his desk. Perhaps he was randomly going through words on thesaurus.com. I'm not sure. But as we all learned from Princess Bride, the quote, I don't think that means what you think it means, definitely applies to absolution. I am 100% certain that this is the same brain trust that thought Constable would be a formidable nickname for a heel on the roster. I would like to have a conversation with these people. I would like to suggest maybe a dictionary or a writer might help. We can do better than the Boss and Hug Connection for 2 of the most popular female superstars in the company. And that is all the time we have today on Wrestling with Sarcasm, because it is a self-imposed time limit that I am committed to. Thank you for tuning in today for episode 2. God willing, fingers crossed, we'll be back for episode 3. We are now officially on iTunes, Google Play, not Spotify, not yet, but the other 2 we are. So please subscribe to us so that we show up in your feed each week. Keep up with any urgent developments around the show. I'm not sure exactly what that would be, but perhaps someday they'll happen at WrestlingWithSarcasm.com. And on Twitter, you can always find me at SarcasmPod. I don't have too many followers just yet, so you're going to get very individualized, specific attention should you follow or at us on Twitter. So please do so. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.